Welcome back, everybody. This is Night Flight, and today Henna Maria Vermeulen is back. And her website is Dawn of Peace and Henna Vermeulen Community. All the links will be below as usual. And so welcome back, Henna. What a difference a few months make, huh?
Yeah, good to reconnect. Huh? A lot has happened.
Yeah, sometimes you don't talk to somebody for a couple of weeks and the entire world has changed again.
I know, it's definitely not a boring time. Yeah, there's no need to watch any films or read any fantasy books. It's just all happening before our eyes.
Yeah. So do you have any new projects that you are working on, and what is important to you right now?
Yeah, well, with the Police for Freedom movement, which is international, where I am coordinating, we are starting to build new campaigns. And one of them is about the training of the police, actually. So this is something that's just in the making now. We haven't published anything, but we are finding out how many discrepancies and how much there is missing in the training of police officers these days. I mean, we're talking about even no psychological testing, barely any firearms training, no emotional intelligence training. And so we're seeing that the level of skill and quality in terms of the new police officers are going down. And it's much easier to get into the police now these days. So this basically just means that we're going to have even more inadequate and inept people wearing the uniform in the future, which is quite, concerning. Mm-hmm. So this is something that I really want to put awareness on. And so we are thinking about creating this kind of campaigns to raise awareness of what is actually missing in the training of the police, and then start to put together material which would be complementary for those who do have this calling to become a police officer, but can't get the proper training from their own academies, so that we could have some kind of material that we can share, and even courses and webinars. So this is like the new direction that we really want to focus on, because we've noticed that, a majority of the police, they are still very much in the box and, following orders and just want to get their wage and go home afterwards and not think anymore. So it's not really happening where the majority of the police would be jumping on board and starting to advocate for human rights. So we're seeing that what we can do as a movement is to just educate, because with a very small number of people, even if you have just a handful in your own country of freedom-loving police, they can do a lot in terms of education. So this is something that we are, putting an effort on next. And also some of our chapters are building structures for parallel police and especially investigative bureaus. So our chapter in Holland, Police for Freedom Netherlands, they are already starting their own investigation bureau. And so they even have office hours where people can come and bring evidence, and they are starting to investigate, especially all these incidents where police have brutalized activists and all these COVID-related crimes that are happening. So this is something that I would love to help build internationally, is independent investigation bureaus, because that's really what the police should be there for, right? As a neutral body that is there to help bring awareness and justice into the society, kind of like guardian angels, if you will. So I think there is a place for police in the new earth as well. Hopefully, eventually, we will have societies that will be fully on board with natural law and the moral law of creation, and we won't need police, because we will all just take responsibility for our actions and live based on love and respect. But until that point, which can be still quite far away based on what I'm observing around me, I think there is a place for police that are, in alignment with the moral law, with natural law. And so this is something that I'm very happy to be supporting and collaborating with these projects. And then, of course, locally, we are building community here in southern Spain. and we are focusing on skill sharing. We're focusing on just making sure that we all understand the basic principles of natural law and how we could get out of the system. So actually later on today, I'm going to be joining a workshop, which is held by our community about principles of sovereignty and autonomy. So that's something that I really want to bring as well more into my activism, is concrete. Maybe I'll do a course even about how to do that, universal principles for natural law in concrete reality, not just spiritually, but how do you live, sovereign?
Yeah. That with the skills, sharing skills, that is very important. I was pretty shocked. I mean, yeah, it is terrible that a lot of baby formula is missing in the United States. On the other hand, I am shocked that people do not know how to help themselves. Yeah. I mean, honestly, we have raised children for thousands of years and there was no baby formula and we did not die off, because of missing formula. So I think skills like that, how you can, or even, knitting a button to a shirt.
Basic foundational stuff. Exactly.
All of that is gone. So many people who are not even capable of preparing a meal that comes not out of a frozen box and that they drop in a microwave. So
you see the level of dependency that we have on so many areas now, that structure is starting to kind of crumble around us for whatever reason. Maybe we can't afford those services anymore, or the price of food is going up, and you're starting to realize that, wait a minute, if I had to grow my own food, would I know how? This is where I am actually. This last spring, I've been learning from scratch how to do a vegetable patch, and this is not something that I was ever taught, and it's a lot of awareness and patience and skill involved. How do you grow a seed into a plant, and all the different aspects of that whole process and journey? So I see it also as an opportunity now to really come back into our senses and come back into us as a living being of the nature, because we've turned into these zoo humans who just live in boxes and have no connection to natural world in the true sense of the word. We maybe go to a picnic, or we go walk around and look at nature as some kind of a visitor in a forest. But do we live as a part of that natural world? No, we don't. So this whole push that is now coming from this transhumanist agenda, this is an opportunity as well for us to regain our power as a creature of the nature.
So going back to your police project, I like it, absolutely. I have a feeling that police these days in our societies, police forces are designed to protect the rulers, those who have the say, and not so much the ordinary population. That is what we are being told. But actually, the way I see it, it's the personal troops of the elites.
Absolutely. Yes. And it's symbolized by the chessboard sign, the black and white squares, which you will always see on the uniforms. Especially around the head, which I find so
third eye.
Exactly. It's like the ring of control is around their minds. So they are being used as the pawns on the chessboard. And of course, I see that the black and white squares represent the Hegelian dialectic. So you have the manufactured problem and the manufactured solution, between which the police are being used as a pawn. So yes, it's very concerning when you realize how far along we are on this agenda of total control over humanity, when even the regular police, which should be about community policing, helping to bring awareness and security onto the streets, but now it's about protecting private companies and property and all these unlawful mandates, it's more about policy than law anymore. I've noticed that a lot of cops on the street don't even know the law. They don't know the hierarchy of law. They don't understand that human rights are above the law, that the law is unlawful if it doesn't respect our fundamental natural rights as human beings. So these have been some very interesting last 2 years, because I've been in dialogue with so many police, because we've been holding our demonstrations weekly up until this spring, when we've had a long deserved break. But we were doing, you know, a year and 8 months of continuous demonstrations on the street. And yeah, I got to meet police that are awake and would thank us and say, it's all a pantomime and it's a disgrace and thank you for what you're doing. But I would have to still say majority of them had no clue what was going on, and had no clue even about the Constitution of Spain and where that stands in terms of when you get local mandates that are just for, you know, the autonomous region of, let's say, Andalusia, you know, like municipality mandates. Where does that stand in the hierarchy of when you have the constitution of a sovereign nation, or you have universal rights? Of course, it can't supersede that, but they didn't know that. They were just following orders. And then you see how all of these tyrannies of the past, how have they been built? They just need to weaponize the masses.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I look back at that time of 2007, 2008, when we had the financial crisis, and then we had a big crisis here in Europe, in Greece. And I remember the protests, the tear gas and everything that was going on. And then one day I looked back at the pictures of Greece during that time. And then I saw these policemen, looking like Robocops, all standing in front of banks. And I was looking at that and I thought, oh my goodness, you're protecting those people who are selling your future and your kids' futures down the river. Are you insane?
Yeah. I know. It's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. So
they can't see it.
They can't. Yeah, exactly. Is it really that they can't, or is it just more convenient to ignore? Or is it a mixture of both?
Yes, you know, ignorance actually means that you're choosing to look away. They're not nation. They're not fully, you know, innocently unaware. Of course, this information is available to them, and they can see where they are being made to have their posts and where they're made to stand. You know, if they have to stand in front of banks, yeah, of course, that must be in some level of your awareness of what you're doing. But yes, I think it's willful ignorance and convenience, and also fear, not knowing what else could I do. Because if you start taking responsibility and you start acting in alignment with your morals, you get in trouble, you know, because you're going to have to confront your superiors. You're going to have to maybe quit your job, or you're going to have to become one of the very annoying, difficult dissenters in your peer group. And that's difficult. You know, the police, I've spoken to many. We have quite a few people that are supporting Police for Freedom, but that not publicly, not with their face and name, because the situations that they're already in the police force, because they have brought into their awareness some of the things that they can't accept, you know. And there's even things like, you know, persecution. There is things where, for instance, I know of one case where a policeman was investigating a murder case, and he found who was actually guilty. And he found that it was someone in the local, I think it was the local council or something, anyway, a local politician who had organized this assassination. He found that out, and the minute he found it out, the police started an investigation against him, and they started fabricating all sorts of crimes to completely destroy him. So he's been, I think, 5 or 6 years, he's been in the courts trying to prove his innocence. And this all started the minute he found out who was the actual individual behind this murder case. So when people say that, oh, all police should just like speak out, they don't understand what kind of sinister forces are at play in those organizations. There's so much organized crime, there's brothels, there's human trafficking, drug trafficking, you name it. It's all happening. And at the highest levels, these organizations, they are governed, they are ruled by the secret societies and the elite. But then the bottom, the rank and file, regular cops, they're unaware of that. There's this gap between, in the hierarchy of orders, they don't know what's happening at the highest levels. They're just wanting to do their job and get their salary and go back home to their families at the end of the day. So this is really the kind of people that we are building connection to, and that we are creating our campaigns for, is the rank and file police officers, because we do not want, we don't even want to deal with that level of hierarchy, where that their loyalty is somewhere else, where they have taken blood oaths and oaths for life for these secret societies.
Yeah, so, exactly.
Yeah.
And just this morning, I read an article. There is a police officer in Australia who is facing investigation because he lectured somebody online that there are only 2 genders. Now he is being investigated for thought crimes.
What? So this is actually happening, this whole Orwellian nightmare thought crime.
Yeah.
It's still difficult for me to actually accept that is where we are. Like that is actually happening.
Yeah. So I think, there is a lot of pressure also on the policemen to keep them all in line. Yeah.
Yes.
So that they are the protectors of special interests, let's put it that way, and not so much about protecting the public. Yeah. I would agree. Henna, since you have worked as an translator at the UN, I was thinking, usually we hear about the United Nations when there is the big assembly and so on and so forth. But I thought during this time, we have now the invasion in the Ukraine, and so what is going on in the United Nations in crisis situations? Do you have any experience from another crisis? Was there a lot of activity, more meetings? How are they dealing with that?
I wasn't a part of such operations. So where I came in, so I don't have that level of information. But what I was doing, I was a simultaneous interpreter in the trainings for the peacekeepers. So I'm aware of the kind of process that go on when you have a team of peacekeepers that need to go and mediate with some local authorities or the imam or the leader of the resistance or something. So just a very, very tiny little kind of peeking hole that I got into that is just in that very specific scenario. So I haven't ever been in any of the assemblies or I don't have, I think, they are very careful what kind of information they share to which people. So I've just got that tiny little glimpse into this scenario, but beyond that, actually, no, I don't have information.
Yeah.
How that functions.
Okay. So in your, you did a video about the 10 stages. Yeah. And you talk about reverse psychology.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate a little bit what that is and how it is used, reverse psychology?
Yeah, well, one of the examples I give there is the mask mandate, and how actually, in the past, when there would be a genocide, and it's important to understand that genocide doesn't only mean a literal killing of a people. It's also metaphorical. So it's when you're destroying a people by destroying their culture or destroying their rights. That's also an official definition of genocide. So even if you're not killed, but your rights are being completely annihilated, that is a form of genocide. So in history, this targeted group that would be a target of genocide would be always stigmatized, visibly labeled somehow. So they would be, either segregated from their societies, they'd be made to wear certain symbols or colors or something. But in this agenda, they did it through the reverse. So they made the majority to wear the mask as a symbol of compliance. But those of us who refused to wear it, we stood out. So we were mocked by our own choice, which I thought was so brilliant from them, because it's almost like you can't win. Because if you put the mask on, you are accepting this slavery, and it's also a very dark symbol of satanic ritual and stuff, the masking. And you're cutting your life force, you're cutting your identity, your humanity. So it's a very, very dark thing to do when you cover your face. But then if you don't do that because you don't want to take part in that ritual of dehumanization, you are being stigmatized, because you can be spotted from miles away. There's a maskless person. This is a dissenter. This is part of the resistance. So I thought that was brilliant how they did that, that there was you could not get out of that situation. Either way, you would be in trouble, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, you had the whole story of they used the virtual signaling. So they inverted, what is good, what is virtuous. So now fear in the COVID era, this is a virtue, that you are seen as a responsible, caring citizen and member of society if you would comply. And they would tell the story of how if you wear the mask, you're actually protecting others. If you take the injection, you are protecting others. So suddenly you had the license to fear. And I've witnessed people around me in my circles who've suffered from a lot of anxiety and fear in their lives because of traumatic childhoods and stuff, almost like getting validation for their experience, that now finally fear is a good thing, and that they have the license to just give themselves to fear. And they became so hysterical and would refuse to even meet their own family members or even to touch you, because they had this virtue of fear now that they were allowed to fully embody. So there were so many ways that they used this manipulation and inversion and reverse psychology on people, and it worked. It was a massive social experiment that we saw the scope of and how brilliant it was. So it's quite amazing.
Yeah. So this training, this additional training for the police, did you experience, or do you think it might happen in the future that you will get some blowback from the establishment and the system, that they're always no, you cannot do an additional training here, so that we are the ones who say what is police training, not you, lady?
Yeah, well, I'm sure they will not be happy about that, that's for sure. But we will, of course, we will make it something completely voluntary. We'll find a way to do it in a way that it's not unlawful in any way. So we will just dress it up as a voluntary course that anyone can do. But of course, we will offer it to the people in the police academies as a complementary thing. But yes, we've been in the media a lot and under a lot of attacks in Finland. When we did a demonstration last November, Police for Freedom demonstration, I think it was featured in 9 different newspapers. And they named us some kind of hybrid influencer movement that is seeking to destroy society. And I was even, what the heck is that? What is this hybrid influence movement? I have no idea. So yeah, they're worried for sure. I have insider information from Finland that the central police, central police in their inner meetings were sharing information, warning the officers from joining us. And they were giving a lot of false information saying that, oh, you'll be forced to march with your uniform on, which is a crime, and which we never do. You never wear the uniform when you march. You have just your Police for Freedom t-shirt. But anyway, so they were putting a lot of like false information to scare people that they wouldn't join. And we've had, you know, our officers under attack, the ones that were serving and still became a chapter leader. They've been just torn to pieces in the media, you know, labeled as extreme right, conspiracy theorists, radicals. Their licenses are being revoked. They're being sued. So yes, absolutely, it's a conscious choice you have to make if you really want to align yourself on the side of the people and natural law and freedom. There will be consequences for sure. But that's where it's the question of character, you know, and question of your commitment, your devotion. You know, are you ready to take that? And the ones that are, they find that actually the stronger they stand in that place, the more support they get from the people. Mm-hmm. So at that point, they realize actually there is nothing to lose. If I lose my job, so what? I've got an entire community who wants to support me and can help me to continue my work as a freelance investigator for the community. So this is what's happening, for instance, in Holland. They are starting to do proper full-time work as police, but not for the government. They're doing that for the people.
Yeah, exactly. And I hope you succeed. I think that is something that is desperately needed, actually, in all countries.
Yeah.
And so I would say that would be brilliant, I understand it's just beginning, but we would see how fast and
it's the seed that is only now starting to germinate, and of course it's going to need a lot of people are going to really have to see the seriousness of this situation before they're ready to go there. So I still think there's a lot of people in denial, even in the freedom movement, who cannot see the full picture of the monstrosity that's in the making, this total control over humanity and nature. And so now that the COVID restrictions have kind of come down a little bit, people are taking a break, they're having a breath of fresh air, they're able to move around and travel. A lot of people have the tendency just to kind of sit back a bit now. And it's unwise to do that. You know, I think this time, yes, we need to rest and recalibrate and regenerate. But at the same time, we have to now start building very strong foundations for the next false flag crisis, because it is coming. And it's not going to take too long before the next one is here. I'm sure of it. By the end of this year.
What do you think about the monkeypox?
About the what? The monkeypox? Is that the SPARS?
No, it's monkeypox.
I haven't heard of that one.
And I'm wondering if that is the new pandemic, because it's right now it's in England, and Portugal has now cases, and we will see. But for I would say 1 or 2 weeks, it has been going through the media, and we will see how they play it.
Oh wow! Well, I've been holding retreats the last couple of weeks, so I've been in complete like darkness in terms of news media. So I haven't even heard monkeypox. What on earth is that? Is it a rash or?
Yeah, rash, but you also have blisters, and it goes along with fever, and
Wow. Well, there's so many, right? Because you have this hepatitis thing that is happening now. You have AIDS starting to come, and so.
But that is a result of the jumbo juice.
Oh, absolutely. It's all different ways to cover up these waves of injuries that are coming through. And we had a little quick chat before we started about even family members and people that we know that are having these injuries, and the same with my family and the people in my circle. And what's disturbing is that they don't seem to remember how good their health was before these injections. It's somehow like, it's like a foggy thing that they can't compare that. Wait a minute, I was in perfect health until I started getting the tests and these jibby jabs. And now steadily my health has been declining very rapidly. They don't seem to be able to do the comparison. It's like there's some kind of mental blockage because they don't want to see that they have been deceived and that they may have made the wrong choice.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, for some people that could mean a mental breakdown if it really, punches them in the face, the full truth. Yeah. I think not everybody is prepared for that, emotionally, mentally, spiritually.
You're right. Yeah. They don't have the capacity. And what would they land on? Because it's almost like you take the entire foundation from their worldview apart. So everything would collapse, unless of course they have people in their circle, friends and family who would be there to help catch them and say, look, I know what you're going through, and here's information, and look, it's not the end of the world. I know cases already now, people who were double jabbed and started having problems with their health, sought for natural medicine and healing, and were able to reverse those symptoms. So I also know that is possible. But the question is, how many people are open enough to seek for help and to have that self-reflection? Exactly what you said. Do they have the capacity to go there?
Yeah. So many people here in Germany are okay. And now in the supermarkets, you do not have to wear the mask. And the mandatory vaccination law, it did fail. It did not come through. But if you go to the town hall, then again, you have to wear them. It doesn't really make sense at this point. Yeah. And, but many say, enjoy this. This is the calm before the storm. It will come back full force, maybe not with the same story, maybe with a different one, but we will certainly experience a renaissance of all the nonsense that went on the last 2 years. Would you agree?
Yes, and worse and more. Because now that was just the medical, it was a medical dictatorship, but when you add into the mix also the technology that is being rolled out, I don't know what is the timeline exactly, how quickly this is going to come, but they're already talking about creating assets from natural processes and completely privatizing nature and all of the earth, all of the resources. So water, air, trees, everything will be assigned a value. And you can even have, every single tree can have their own NFT. So they will be calculating the worth of everything, and they will be belonging to all these giant corporations. And then for us to be able to access nature, we will have to pay for that. So they will have this control grid, not just in cities, but everywhere. So even all the natural parks and forests and everything will be surveilled. And our ability to access water and food, this will all be calculated based on, our tokens, the carbon allowance tokens. So we will be assigned a certain amount of carbon that we're able to use per month. And then based on how carbon heavy is our life, we will either have to keep buying more credits, or we'll be assigned some kind of social work or other kind of collaborative things that we have to do in the community to be able to gain access to those resources again. So we're looking at total control, total slavery. And Klaus Schwab has already talked about microchips that are able to read human thought, and that technology could be used when you're crossing borders. So they can do a scan and find whether you have dissenting thoughts, and you're not able to enter the country if there is a risk that you would not comply with whatever mandates are in place at the moment. So it's
Minority Report.
Megalomaniac, madness.
Minority Report.
Yeah.
We are there.
We're there. Yeah.
Oh boy. Yeah, sometimes I don't know whether to laugh or to cry. I usually go for the laughing. Yeah. But there are tendencies out there where I have to say, wow. Yeah. So.
And of course, Ukraine is now the first country who've taken this, I think it's called DIA app, where you have the universal basic income and the digital identity and your health status or pharmaceutical status, let's say, that has nothing to do with health, all combined under one app. They are the first country.
Yeah, I know.
Who've taken it. So under the guise of this armed conflict, this war, there is very rapid development happening into this digital identity scheme.
Yeah. Zelensky also he banned the opposition parties. He banned 10 parties, and the leader of the one party that actually had a chance to run against him, he has been arrested. So what type of democracy are we defending there? Can somebody explain that to me?
It's just another dictatorship. It's amazing how it's like people have been rallied to see them as some kind of, the David and Goliath, like they are the David, they are these virtuous people, and every single government is immoral. We need to get into the bottom of this. The people of Ukraine are just as subjugated to that slavery as every other citizen of these immoral, structures of hierarchy. And democracy itself, even, I go even as far as to say, I don't think democracy, even if in its pure form, is a solution, because it's just mob rule.
Yeah.
So imagine if you have majority that are uneducated or brainwashed, like right now, do we really see that it's just that majority rules over maybe a much more conscious minority? It can't work. So I see we have to go back into very small societies, almost like tribes, communities of people who are voluntarily associating with each other. So there would be no mandatory association. You build your own communities with the people that you love and trust, and you create your own systems. And then these neighboring communities can collaborate and exchange and trade and build structures together. And I see that is the only way, because if you have these big concentrations of people, you cannot have trust anymore. You will inevitably have structures forming above it that will all be built on violent rule. This is what democracy ends up in. It's mob rule, and they believe that there's justification for violence in order to control people. And of course, you have the taxation and all, other forms of theft and domination. So if we would just be able to build these sovereign communities outside of the tentacles of the state and learn the skill sets that are necessary for us to just completely function as an autonomous community, I think that is the way. And as far as I can see, the spiritual principles of even the other side is still all based on consent and contracts. So I don't see that they would even start engaging with us if we are fully autonomous, because you have to consent to the slavery, right? Even when they propose the injections to us, the information is out there, what it actually contains and what are the injuries, the risks involved with that technology. And so even though they say it's a requirement for work or whatever, it's still a consent that you give to them. It's a contract. Nobody's actually forcing it on us. So when people say that they'll come and drag you out of their houses, I don't think it works that way. I think even the other side has to play by the rules of the spiritual law of consent. They have to get you to sign the contract.
Yeah, on the other hand, here in Germany, there are preparations. They call it census now. And so every house owner has to, yeah, fill in the form. Everything, you know, how big, how many people live in this house, how many rooms are there, how many square meters, blah, 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 blah. So, and if you have to fill that out, and if you don't, you will be punished. Yeah.
Mhm.
And ultimately, what this is going to be is a preparation for expropriation.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
the word expropriation goes around here, you know, and everybody seems to be comfortable up to now with that word because it is only happening to the bad ones, the bad oligarchs, the bad Russians. Yeah, but the spiritual law is that you accept it for one group, you accept it for yourself.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Well, this is where we have to apply the knowledge of natural law and how do we deregister our properties? Because as long as our children, our properties, our you know, everything that we own is registered, of course, regis means king. So you give ownership of your family, of your property to the crown, to the monarchy, then you are their property, and then they do have the even the lawful right over you because you've consented to that. So this is where we need to learn, how do we do it spiritually and practically on earth, that we denounce that we take away, we rescind all those contracts, and we free ourselves from that control system. And there are ways to do that, and I know people who've managed to do that even in the court system, where they've set requirements for even the use of their name. So for instance, you can do a trademark of your name, your straw man name. And if the if the corporations or the governments are using your name, which you've made into a trademark, you can charge them for that. So every time they try and send you a fine or a bill or something, you can say, you lawfully owe me 10,000 euros every time you use my name without my consent. So there's all sorts of things that we can do. It all goes back to knowledge, you know, knowledge of the system and how it's all based on contracts, right? So what is our condition of the contract? Even the simple things of when you're flying and you're filling out the landing form, you know, in some places they've taken away the tests and everything, but you still have to fill out the form. So what do you do if it's not a paper form where you can write anything? You can't actually write your lawful name. It's all with your straw man. It's not a legal contract. But they're saying that by filling out this form, you're accepting the mandates of the local health authorities. So essentially you're agreeing to track and trace and all this business. So what I do is I use the code UCC 1-308, which is a universal code for I reserve my rights. So you can put that code, for instance, where they ask for address, where are you going to be staying? I put that there, and the computers don't know what it is. So it goes through.
And that is called UCC what?
UCC space 1-308.
Okay.
So yeah. I do this, and for instance, when I traveled to Finland, and they had the mandatory track and trace, and you have to get tested after 5 days of landing and whatever. Nobody ever gave me a call. Nobody. I didn't receive a single call. Whereas I have many friends who were harassed by these track and trace people, and they were being, you know, urged to go get the test. But I put it in the contract, and I'm sure that they can't because you've declared that you don't consent with this simple code. So there's things that we can do even when we're forced into these unlawful contracts where you reserve your own rights, and this code is one of them. And it's universal. You can use it in any country.
Yeah, that's wonderful to know.
Yeah.
So let's say it happens. I mean, there's even a book out there that talks about that the entire world is practically run only by 7 corporations, and every human being is assigned to a certain corporation. And so let's say it really happens that they own everything. What would happen in that situation with those communities who are trying to live outside the system? Would they just seize it, or what's the deal here?
My personal assessment of that, based on looking at history and looking at how they function, is that they would do, I believe this is how it would go. So they would do everything they can to kind of smoke us out. So they would put the prices of electricity, if you're in the grid, so high that it would be virtually impossible for you to use electricity anymore. You know, they would outlaw having wells. They would, they will outlaw having private property. So you won't be able to purchase land anymore very soon. And in this way, they would try and make it impossible for us to access nature and land and live off grid. But this is what I believe. I believe those of us who will already have settled and made our off-grid communities where we don't have those ways where they can extort us. If we have our own source of water, if we have deregistered the land, that we have lawful ownership of the land, or stewardship, let's put it that way. If we have our own ways to generate energy with hydroponics or whatever system it is with earth, what do you call it? The heat that comes, the thermal energy, or whichever way that we've managed to build it so that we don't actually depend on the grid, we don't depend on the system, I don't think they would come for us. I don't think they are concerned of the maybe 2 to 5% of the population of the earth that would be so prepared and so responsible that they would have, built these structures. I think they are concerned of the masses, of the mass major part of the population, which they already have in their clutches. Because even if you look into the past and you see, even during the Roman Empire, you would have sovereign communities like the Essenes that were left completely at peace, and they were even recognized for their own sovereign status. Everyone else would have to pay tax, and they would have to sign all these contracts, whereas an Essene was taken for their word. So yes would be a yes, no would be a no, and they could not impose contracts on them because they lived completely in alignment with natural law. So they had their own walled gardens, their own communities, and they lived outside of the control of the Roman Empire, even though they lived on land masses that officially would belong to the empire, but they were left alone. They were left to live in peace. Of course, they would be discriminated, and people would talk badly about them, and they would be mocked, and there would be all sorts of agendas to make them sound and seem like crazy ones that you would not want to associate with. But they were not violently hunted down or persecuted. And same if you look at the conquistadors and the way they, pillaged and raped and murdered the indigenous people, there were still tribes that remained intact. They just went deep enough into the forests or high enough, high on the mountains, and they remained untouched. And even up until recently, there's been communities like Zumia in Southeast Asia of 80 million people living stateless in anarchy. So you have these communities that have survived, or the Amish in America. So this is what I see, what is the pattern in history. And I don't believe that they would allocate resources in trying to get us. What would they gain from that? I think they would just put their resources in gaslighting and brainwashing people to see us as crazy, and then just leave us to it. This is honestly, I don't see they would come and burn our houses down. We are such a small minority,
Yeah. Not worth dealing with.
I don't think so. I don't think so. No. I think part of the kind of the reward they get is when they know that people are choosing their own slavery. I think this is the whole thing about it is that you consent to it. So they're trying to bypass some of the karma, some of the spiritual crimes that they're, that they are making by putting the information out there and giving you always a little exit route. So you can choose another way. Like, for instance, for us, we still have been able to live our lives and be part of the society, even though they put the COVID pass and they tried to put so many walls, but there was always a way out. Yeah.
So what I see looming at the horizon, and of course I'm not the only one, that is a very hard food crisis. That, of course, Sri Lanka is very dramatic right now. They have pushed cars of politicians into the river. One policeman died. The police can no longer control the crowds. They have set politicians' houses on fire. And yeah, Sri Lanka is out of fuel. End of story. Since yesterday, they defaulted on their debt and they had left 1 day of fuel. So that is the situation, and the Sri Lankan people do not know where and how to get their food, because there is a little bit of food in the country, yes, but the prices are so exorbitant that a lot of people can no longer afford it. So we see the same in Iran right now, that more and more food riots are happening.
Yes. Yeah, I heard they are now imposing the digital identity so you can get bread for the Iranians.
Yeah. So, yeah. And if that, this hunger crisis, if on top of that, we will also see an invasion in Taiwan, I mean, that will be really funny. Goodness.
It's such a chaotic time. I mean, there's so many influences happening at the same time and so many potential, like, just fires that can burst out of a little spark. I feel like there's just this kind of kindling everywhere. The tension is getting harder. Even in Finland, what's happening to the farms, the price of fertilizer, it's something like 100-fold from what it normally is. So we have 3 farms a day shutting down now. Like essentially all food security of Finland is just disappearing now because of all these boycotts that they're doing to Russia. Russia would provide the fertilizer. So they are there, waving their flags and believing that we are now teaching Russia a hard lesson because they are these tyrants and dictators and they are performing crimes against humanity while they are sabotaging completely their own economy and their own food security. It's absolutely tragic.
The sanctions are against us. Why is it so hard to see?
Yeah, exactly. The sanctions are against us. So food security, this is really what we should all be focusing on. I'm saying, let's do less of the street demonstrations and just less of the no, and just say, okay, they're doing it consciously. No matter how much we say no, they do not care. They're laughing at us. When has a demonstration ever prevented some kind of a war or a massive crisis? It just doesn't work that way. We can go out there to find our tribe and organize, but not to keep giving our power away to these parasites, these dominators. So we need to start organizing on the local levels and seriously start preparing in terms of, seed banks, food forests, allotments. If you can't get land, learn how to grow something indoors. There are these technologies where you can grow things even with the air. You can have little terrace gardens, something, and buy things that are, don't easily perish. Nuts, seeds, dried fruits, things that have a lot of nutrition and can last. And learn how to purify water, because the the waters are just so polluted already by now, and we don't know how far they can go with that, what all sorts of stuff they can put into it, even, you know, nanotechnology. So and natural medicine, that is something we should all have in reserve. All these things that they are out to ban, completely outlaw. So while you can still get your hands on some of these remedies, you know, let's make sure we have proper medicine cabinet in our house, and talk to our neighbors and friends. And maybe some of us can have lots of colloidal silver, others can have the CDS, others can get Artemisia and all these herbs, and then we can trade.
Yeah, I have stocked up on all of that, CDL, colloidal silver.
Yeah.
Now I'm stocking up on LifeWave, the one that I told you about. And yeah, I think that is one of the most important steps that we need to take to become more independent of the medical system, that you do not have to run to the doctor for yeah, minor things. Okay, if you have a broken arm or leg or whatever, yeah, okay, there are instances where you have to go no matter what. Yeah. But other than that,
yeah. And there are also many nurses that have been sacked, or they've left the job because they refuse to take the juice. You know, they can begin to organize. I know there are systems like this already being built in Italy. You have the, I think it's called Hippocrate, which is a group of doctors that come to your home. They do in-house visits and treatments, and they give protocols that are unlawful in hospitals, or not unlawful, but illegal in hospitals. So that is important when the peer groups start organizing. So what's happening with the police now, with the Police for Freedom, they're building their own investigation bureaus outside of the system. The same thing needs to happen with the doctors and nurses that are awake. You know, we can't continue like this, where you know, just accept some of the immoral stuff in order to get a paycheck. How about our communities fund you, and you can get together and build your own off-grid clinics and start doing treatments, and where you can provide things like, you know, setting a bone again, or treating wounds, things that we would normally go to the doctor for, because soon enough we won't be able to access those services. You know, when this digital ID becomes a permanent thing, and all your data is under one chip, or, you know, or whatever system, then I don't know that we'll even be able to go there for a wound or a broken bone.
Yeah. In other words, we have to learn how to take care of that ourselves.
Yes. We need a fully functioning parallel system with all of that in place. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so as well. And I think right now in this particular situation, being able to plant and raise your own food, and being able as much as possible to avoid the medical system, that is one of the most revolutionary things you can do.
Yes, yes. And learn how to guard seeds, you know, because soon everything will be genetically modified, and there will be ways that they will get GM products into the shops without us even knowing. So while we still have access to organic and natural heirloom seeds, you know, start guarding them, and just make sure whatever you're bringing onto your land is not genetically modified, because of course that information codes our system. So if you're eating genetically modified food that doesn't produce seed, you are putting that information into your body not to produce seed. This is how we're becoming infertile. And this already an epidemic over the last 10 years, where women and men are really struggling to have children naturally.
Last 50 years, I have just seen a video from a doctor, and she worked for the CDC, and yeah, they investigated it, and they found out that the last 50 years, humanity has dropped each year 1% of fertility. So we are now at half.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And it is not only the industrial nations, it's worldwide.
Yeah. And it's all to do with the poisoning, this toxic assault against humanity. It's the Roundup, you know, all of this, the chemtrails, whatever we're being sprayed with, what's in our water, the topsoil is dying. So Yeah, of course. Whatever the earth is suffering is our bodies are earth. We are earth. You know, we have this thing that we think earth means soil. No, earth is this plane of being, the plants, the animals, the creatures. We are earth. And so whatever is the earth is suffering with, we are feeling it in our bodies also. Our waters are being polluted. Our blood is being clogged up. You know, we are drying out. So yeah, we have to, you know, whatever we give back to the earth is actually also to heal humanity. Yeah, we are intrinsically connected.
Yeah, I stocked up on sproutable seeds. You know, here in Germany, it's a big topic. We are expecting a full-blown blackout sooner or later. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So a lot of people are preparing. And so I thought, yeah, okay, I have a lot of canned food, and, you know, something that you can really store for a long time. And but I thought somehow you had, I'm not such a fan of multivitamins. Yes, you can substitute during that time, but I thought I would like to have something fresh. So I bought myself a sprouting glass seeds so that I can do that. And then in the morning, I will top up my sandwich with fresh sprouts so that there is some nutrition coming.
Yeah, that's brilliant. You can do that with all the grains. You can sprout them as well, and all the legumes. So if you buy, I mean, this is the cheapest stuff and the last one to run out when there's a food crisis. I noticed it with the pandemic. All the lentils, all the chickpeas, all the, you know, the spelt was untouched in the shelves, where the frozen section and all the meat section and all of that was gone. But the cheapest, most nutritious and you know, less perishable items were actually available, and they're very cheap. So yeah, so stock up on that and learn how to sprout. That's a brilliant tip.
Yeah, and it's really easy to do that. So I thought, yeah, that is somehow I have to find a way to to enhance.
And foraging. I've been now looking for books of the local region here. How do you recognize and prepare edible, you know, wild foods? And so, and I found it interesting that a lot of these books are crazy expensive, or they're even out of print already. So this could easily be something that they will destroy, you know, in the next book burnings, is knowledge of forageable foods, because they're everywhere. You know, you walk around in your neighborhood and you don't realize most of the seeds and most of the weeds are actually edibles. So if we learn how to eat directly off the earth, even better, then we don't need to stock up so much. We'll be able to, you know, get even pine cones and pine seeds and things that we can dry that last throughout the year, you know, mushrooms. And there's tribes in Siberia, you know, from part of the ancient Vedic civilization that did this. They just actually stored foods from the summer and autumn all throughout the year, and they'd live in the bear caves, and they'd be able to survive through the harsh winter just with the dried fruits and foods, and berries and stuff like that, and tubers and roots. So there is a way. I think knowledge is key here, because if we don't have that skill set and that awareness, it's easy to fall into fear and desperation and kind of start panicking, like, how will we survive? But if you look at the history of humanity and you realize that we live directly off the earth, then, you know, we can let go of that fear and just become well prepared.
So thank you so much. I hear my echo.
Oh, really? I can't hear it.
No, it's gone. Oh, that was weird.
Anomaly.
So thank you very much for coming today. And my cat is grabbing the curtains. Okay.
Oh yeah.
So that was it, Night Flight for today, with the lovely Henna Maria, and we will see you all next time. Until then, bye bye. Stay safe and sound.
Thank you.